Learn how to use SetRequestHeader method to format an Ajax request like an HTML form submission and pass data string directly through the send method. In this lesson, we are going to be looking at an example that demonstrates how we can set a request header alongside our data when using the post method with Ajax. So let's move into the script part of my boilerplate code, and inside this script part, let's make a function and let's call it SetRequest. And don't worry about this name, you can name it anything you want. So you just make use of the name when it's about time to call the function. So inside this, let's make a variable xHTTP, and let this xHTTP, let it receive our HTML request object. So once we have this, then we can move on and set our unload property alongside this and construct another function. And this function is going to take a method called document.getElementById and act as our event listener when the response that we seek for is available. So when that response is available, this will act as an event listener that will receive it, and we use this method inside this function in order to display it on the screen. So we can do http.open, and as usual, this is going to receive two arguments. Number one is the HTTP verb, and number two is just going to be a URL or a file that we have on the server. So let me just use something like demoworker.js. So it's one of the files I've created already. So this is the file. There's actually nothing inside it. So let's move on. Now that we have this now, so it's time for us to now set our request header. Set request header. Then what do you want to send? Well, actually, we want to set the content type of the kind of response that we want, and we set that type to application /x www form URL. And now that we have this header set, then xhttp.set. And last name equals to 4. So right now you cannot see anything because we don't have the means to preview it. So let's just add a simple button and let this button have an ID of BTN. And on click property, this is where we now call the function that we have, set request. And let's just do add a simple text like try me. So now if I go ahead and click on this button, actually nothing is happening. So let me try and inspect. Now inside the console there's nothing. Let me just put a simple text here, maybe hello. Now you can see it. If you look at this post request, now let's look at the request. You can see the data we are sending. This is the first name and the last name, which correspond to what we have inside our send method. So this is the first name and this is the last name. You can see Henry and you can see Ford. So this means that, and is there anything in response? Nothing yet. And this is our header. Now look at our header. As you can see our content type, which correspond to this application /www.form. That is, this is a form. And you can also see the first name and the last name. So this is our request header that we set, and this is also our send method that is sending information alongside what you are trying to send in this particular example. Now, this example just configure a post request to our file that is demoworker.js. So it explicitly tells the server that it is sending form data, attaches the data, and transmits it. So once the request is being made, it will attach the data and send it. And that is the reason why in inspecting, you can see the method that it is a post method, and you can see the file, and you can see the request as well as our headers. So the server processes these specific names and then return a response, which JavaScript should display in a real word application. This is probably going to be, once you click the button, it will return this information. I'm talking about this first name and the last name on the screen. But for the purpose of this example, I am not setting anything inside the file. I'm just using a file in order to show us. So in a real world application, so it will be something like this. Let first name equals to maybe last name. Last name equals to Ford. So in a real world application, so you probably will have something like this, and then when you click on the button, so the button definitely is not going to return that information back to you on the screen. But I'm not going towards that direction. I just want to show us how you can make use of the SetRequestHeader method in order to set information that can be attached to your request when you are sending information to the server. So the XHTML SetRequestHeader here is what sets this header that you can see here. So let me go back to it this time. So this set an HTTP header. It informs the server that the upcoming data payload is encoded exactly like a standard HTML form submission. So using a key value pair linked by ampersand linked by an ampersand sign. So you can see it. You see the ampersand sign. It is this middle sign that you can see on my screen. And then the send method is taking a string of data directly inside it. So this data is placed alongside the request body, and it is safely hidden from the browser's address bar, and then it will be delivered to the server. Like I said, that in a real world application, it's not supposed to be something that we are seeing. So it should be sent along with other information to the server. And this part, open part, is where the connection mode is initialized. So it is where the connection to the server will be initialized, and you will notice that our SetRequestHeader is being written after it and before the send method. And that is because if it does not follow this format, the browser will just throw an error. So in a real world application, once again, this will probably be that when you click on this button, it will just display a piece of information or whatever that is contained in your request body on the screen. So this is how you use the SetRequestHeader to set information and data with your payload when making a request or sending information to the server.